Passive income is the goal. Every financial channel says it. Every podcast episode sells it. Every course, every guru, every thread on every platform points to the same destination. Build passive income streams. Escape the grind. Live on autopilot. And they're not lying. Passive income is real. The math behind it is legitimate. Dividend portfolios, rental cash flow, digital products, royalties. These things exist and they work. The people preaching them aren't making it up. But they're not telling you the whole truth either. Because what they skip, what gets quietly left out of every passive income success story, is what had to exist first, before the passive income, before the portfolio, before any of it started generating a single dollar without effort. There is something that comes before passive income, something that makes passive income possible. And almost nobody is talking about it directly. Most people have the sequence completely backwards. And that mistake costs years. 11:37 a.m. But nobody ever asks the obvious question. If passive income is the answer, if building income streams is the move everyone should be making, then why are the overwhelming majority of people who chase it ending up more financially stressed? Not less, not richer, more stretched, more distracted, more in debt than when they started. Not because the concept is wrong. Because there's a specific hidden requirement nobody mentions before they hand you the roadmap. Passive income does not create financial freedom. It amplifies whatever financial foundation already exists underneath it. Pointed at a weak foundation, inconsistent savings, no emergency fund, high interest debt quietly compounding in the background, and passive income doesn't rescue you. It distracts you. It gives you something exciting to focus on while the real problem grows louder underneath. Nobody asks, what does your foundation actually look like right now? Because that question is harder than buying a course. And the answer is less comfortable than a passive income fantasy. Here's the actual data. The median American household carries over $6,000 in credit card debt at an average interest rate hovering around 21%. At the same time, the most commonly promoted passive income strategy, dividend investing, yields somewhere between 1.5% and 4% annually on a standard portfolio. Read that again. People are paying 21% interest on debt while chasing 3% returns. That is not a wealth-building strategy. That is a leak dressed up in financial motivation content. Not $10,000 a month in passive income. Not financial freedom by 40. The typical person who spends 2 years chasing passive income without fixing their foundation first ends up with a side project that generates maybe $200 a month, while quietly losing 4 times that amount of interest, fees, and the financial chaos they never stop to address. The gap between the passive income fantasy and the passive income reality is an effort. It isn't strategy. It's a foundation that was never built first. So why does everyone keep selling the passive income dream if the foundation comes first? Because foundation doesn't sell. Nobody is making a course called Build Your Emergency Fund. Nobody is going viral with a thumbnail that says pay off your high-interest debt first. There's no aspirational lifestyle content built around automating your savings rate. These things are invisible. They're quiet. They don't photograph well. Passive income has a story. It has a number. It has a screenshot. It has a lifestyle attached to it. Laptops on beaches, notifications while sleeping, money arriving without effort. That story is emotionally compelling in a way that fix your financial foundation first simply cannot compete with. And the people selling passive income loudest are almost always profiting from your attention, not your outcome. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The myth persists because it is far more profitable to sell you the destination than to hand you the actual map. Foundation is the map. And the map is what nobody is showing you. Here's what actually works, and why it works in an order most people refuse to follow. The real mechanism behind every sustainable passive income story is not the income stream itself. It is the margin that made the income stream possible. Margin, the gap between what you earn and what you spend, is the only raw material that builds anything real. Without margin, there is nothing to deploy, nothing to invest. Nothing to compound. No course, no rental property, no dividend portfolio gets built without surplus dollars that had nowhere else to go. Step 1 is not finding the income stream. Step 1 is creating the margin. That means eliminating high-interest debt aggressively. That means building 3 to 6 months of expenses in liquid savings. That means automating a savings rate that actually moves the needle, not the comfortable percentage, the slightly painful one. Once that foundation exists, passive income stops being a fantasy and starts being a math problem. And math problems have solutions. Fantasies just have merchandise. Here's a pattern that plays out more than any other. Someone gets inspired. They watch the videos, read the books, build the spreadsheet. They pick their passive income vehicle. Maybe dividend stocks, maybe a digital product, maybe a rental property. They go all in. They are genuinely motivated, genuinely working. And 12 to 18 months later, they are exhausted, underwhelmed, and quietly back to square one. Not because they chose the wrong strategy, because they skipped the foundation and went straight to the building. They started constructing walls before the concrete dried, and everything they built on top of an unstable base eventually reflected that instability back at them. The most common version of this mistake looks like investing $500 a month into a brokerage account while carrying $9,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest. The investment feels productive. The math is catastrophic. You cannot out-earn a foundation problem. You cannot out-invest it. You cannot out-hustle it. The foundation must come first. Every time. Without exception. So here is the actual sequence. In order. No shortcuts. First, audit the leak. List every high-interest debt you are currently carrying. Credit cards, personal loans, buy now, pay later balances. Calculate the exact interest you are paying monthly. That number is your real starting point, not your income, not your investment returns. That number. Second, close the gap aggressively. Before any passive income strategy gets a single dollar of your attention, that high-interest debt gets attacked. Avalanche method, snowball method. Pick one and move. The math favors avalanche. The psychology sometimes favors snowball. Either beats doing nothing while researching dividend stocks. Third, build a floor. 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account. Liquid, untouched, not invested. This is not your wealth-building vehicle. This is the wall that keeps one bad month from destroying everything you're building. Fourth, only now do you deploy into passive income, with margin, with stability, with a foundation underneath you that doesn't crack when life gets unpredictable. That sequence is the fix. It is not complicated. It is just uncomfortable in the right order. Here is a timeline nobody wants to hear, but everyone needs. Building a real financial foundation before chasing passive income takes somewhere between 6 months and 2 years depending on where you are starting from. That is not a motivational number. It is not thumbnail worthy, but it is honest. And here is what makes it worth it. Every person who skips that phase and chases passive income first spends years cycling through strategies, burning energy, and wondering why the math never quite works. Every person who completes that phase first finds that passive income stops being a grind and starts being a natural next step. The foundation doesn't slow the journey down. It makes the journey survivable. You were not behind because you lacked ambition. You were sold the destination before you were given the map. Now you have the map. The question is whether you are willing to follow in the right order, even when the right order is slower, quieter, and completely unglamorous. That is the whole game. And now you know it.